This is CBC Vancouver News.
I'm content and I'm happy.
Reaction coming in from family of victims after notorious serial killer Robert Pickton was assaulted in prison, leaving him in critical condition. Also, the ransomware attack on London Drugs, what it means for the retailer and those who may have had their information compromised. Plus,
this run sets the bar high for the franchise and also for the city.
An agonizing loss for the Canucks in Game 7, knocking them out of the playoffs, but fans keeping their optimism for the team's future. Hi, I'm Jessica Cheung. Thanks for joining us. Serial killer Robert Pickton is in critical condition after being assaulted by another inmate in a Quebec prison.
When an incident like this happens, the Correctional Service has internal procedures where they review the circumstances of the incident to ensure that all of the appropriate security practices are in place.
Canada's public safety minister called Pickton one of the most dangerous criminals in the country. The assault happened on Sunday. Police say the assailant is a 51-year-old man. Pickton has undergone surgery and is in the hospital. The 74-year-old was convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder in 2007 and sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. The sister of one of his victims called the news of his assault a relief.
And happy. To be honest, I jumped up and down. And I said, good for him. He deserved it. I don't wish any harm on anybody, but karma.
Tammy Papin was the sister of Georgina Papin. Police found her remains along with the remains or DNA of 32 other women on Pickton's pig farm in Port Coquitlam. Many of those women were Indigenous. Now an update to the cyber attack on London Drugs. The retailer says it was a ransomware attack that shut down all their stores in Western Canada for a week back in April. The BC-based drugstore says cyber criminals on the dark web were threatening to leak stolen files from its corporate head office if they were not paid. The company says those files could contain employees' personal information, but it reiterates that there's no indication that patient or customer databases have been compromised. The retailer says it is unable and unwilling to pay the ransom demand. Vancouver Public Library workers have avoided a strike after reaching a tentative deal with their employer. The union has been negotiating a new contract since September. It says the deal will better support library workers and improve services. The ratification vote on the new contract will take place next week. The 4 men accused of killing Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar were in BC court today. It was their first appearance together, and as Georgie Smythe reports, a judge has ordered them not to have contact with several people.
Today was the first time we've seen Karan Brar, Kamalpreet Singh and Amandeep Singh appear together in a Surrey courtroom. 3 of the men currently held in BC were led into the courtroom in handcuffs and sat right in front of members of the Gurdwara. Hardeep Singh Nijjar was killed last year. Amandeep Singh appeared via video link from Ontario. All 4 men are accused of the same charges of murder and conspiracy to commit murder. A Punjabi interpreter translated the court's directions to the accused men. The judge reordered that the men not contact a list of people, including members of Nijjar's family, and the men were required to say that they understood. There were less onlookers from the Sikh community here compared to their first appearance, but still many flags and signs outside court, including a mannequin of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi dressed in prison stripes and in handcuffs. Now it's been 10 months since Hardeep Singh Nijjar was gunned down in his car outside a Gurdwara in Surrey. The temple leader was also a prominent Sikh activist who advocated for the creation of a separate Sikh state in India known as Khalistan. Maninder Singh, a spokesperson from the BC Gurdwaras Council, held a short press conference outside court today and said that seeing the men in court in person was galvanizing for their cause and underlined the need for accountability.
I think this draws out a bit of emotion. We need to actually get the trial underway. We need to get a conviction and we need to get sentencing. That's how the community feels right now. But seeing them is a reminder for us that these 3 individuals were used by India that 3 are here today, 3 will come tomorrow or the next year. It's really more up to what we can do in Canada to ensure that India is held accountable at the highest levels.
Now, it's hard to talk about this case without talking about those allegations of foreign interference. The federal government and police have previously confirmed that they are looking at possible links between Miss Anisha's murder and links to the Indian government. We expect to learn more about those allegations and links as this court process continues. The case has been adjourned for June 25. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Surrey, BC.
There has been public outcry after an 18-year-old student at the University of Victoria died from fentanyl poisoning. And now the BC government says it's taking action. The Ministry of Mental Health and Addiction says it is in discussions to purchase larger quantities of nasal naloxone, which is relatively easy to use. The province says it's also working on making CPR lessons mandatory in high schools. And those are some of the measures called for by the victim's parents in an open letter last week. Sydney McIntyre-Starko died at the university dorm in January after being poisoned by fentanyl. Her parents say her death was preventable, and the Premier announced a coroner's inquest into the death last week. The province is removing a major barrier to First Nations acquiring land as changes to the property law tax and the Land Title Act come into effect.
It gets rid of a rather racist relic from colonial times and gives First Nations people a right they've never recognized, a right for First Nations people that they had never had recognition for in the past.
Before the changes, First Nations were not allowed to buy a piece of land without forming an organization like a corporation or trust. Now they can register to acquire, hold, and register land in their own name directly. The BC government says this is an important step towards reconciliation. And documents obtained by CBC News are raising new questions about the collapse of charges in a major Victoria police drug bust. Emails show prosecutors warned that misconduct allegations against one of the force's now former officers could jeopardize prosecutions of cases that he was involved in. Our Jason Proctor broke this story, and Dan Burrett spoke with him earlier today.
Jason, remind us what happened here.
Yeah, so this was called Project Juliet, and it sort of fell apart as it was heading towards trial. And basically that's because what emerged during this proceeding was that investigators in the case misled the court about the involvement of one officer in the first iteration of this, who was himself facing misconduct allegations at the time of the investigation. And so this is one of these sort of cover-up being worse than the crime kind of thing, nothing suggesting what he actually did played any role in their prosecution itself. But it's just they didn't disclose that, and so that was a problem.
Now, you've filed your own FOIs on this Freedom of Information request. What did you find out?
Yeah, well, it raises still more questions about this, because what we see is some emails from prosecutors at the time when this guy was arrested back in 2020, well before any of the information that was supposed to go to Crown or defense lawyers, saying we need to know every case he's involved with because it could jeopardize any prosecutions under rules of disclosure around where you're sort of required to tell defense about misconduct allegations involving police. We also got information about 100 or so cases that he had an involvement in as a witness officer, so either as an investigator or a confidential informant handler. And I was sort of able to kind of follow up on quite a few of them, finding that at least 18 also ended up in states. We don't know why, because prosecutors won't tell us, but it's just sort of lends questions to this whole thing about the fallout, and there are calls for more transparency around it.
All right. Jason Proctor, thanks very much.
Well, if you looked outside at any point today, you probably aren't surprised to hear a rainfall warning is in effect for parts of Metro Vancouver. Now, the warnings cover both North and West Vancouver, as well as Coquitlam and Maple Ridge. Environment Canada saying there is a risk of flash floods and pooling water. 50 millimeters of rain is forecast to fall on the region by tomorrow morning. It's not something we usually warn you about at the end of May right now, but there could be some snow for drivers heading into or out of the interior. Environment Canada says 2 to 4 centimeters is coming to the Coquihalla, Okanagan Connector, Allison Pass, and Kootenay Pass. The snowfall is expected to fall into tomorrow morning as well, and drivers planning to take those highways are encouraged to closely monitor conditions and check Drive BC for the latest. And despite the cooler weather helping crews fight wildfires in the province's northeast, officials say 4 homes have still been destroyed and 6 others damaged in Fort Nelson. And with thousands of residents still under evacuation order, the mayor says planning is underway to make their return as seamless as possible.
We're bringing people back in little bits so that we can, protect them, because if they come back in under our authority, if the worst happens and this fire flares up again and we have to move them, we have to know where they are. So we're trying to do what we can in advance of getting the word from the wildfire service.
An evacuation order for the Doig River First Nation has been downgraded to an alert a week after residents fled due to the Parker Lake wildfire. Residents are urged to stay prepared in case an evacuation order is reissued. A shortage of dermatologists across Canada means patients who need to be screened for skin cancer have to wait longer. Yvette Bren took a look at what's being done with cases of melanoma on the rise.
I've had 4 melanomas removed from my head.
Bruce Ballingall has lost much of the skin on his skull to cancer.
I have 5 brothers.
Yeah.
And all 5 of us, all 6 of us, have some type of skin cancer.
Mole mobile nurse Faye Youssef used a scope to screen his chest.
Looking at them, they do appear a little bit scaly and red.
Nobody warned me even about it until it was too late. And now I know all about it, and that's why I'm here to help convince people the sun will kill you if you let it.
He's eager for this charity-run mobile cancer screening van to drive to Kamloops, where his brother has waited for a dermatology appointment for a year and a half.
There's no dermatologist in Kamloops, apparently. So when this unit gets there, people will be able to get checked out.
Canada has only 770 dermatologists, mostly in urban parts of the country. 290 in Ontario, 96 in BC, 12 in Saskatchewan, and only 1 in PEI. This according to the Canadian Dermatology Association.
I don't have the perfect solution, but I think it goes with training more, retaining more.
He says Canada loses dermatologists to retirement or better paying jobs, often in cosmetic clinics.
It does pay that much more, yes. I'm a primary researcher, so I do skin cancer research. I think about skin cancer all the time, and I'm capped according to a provincial billing, which is among the lowest specialists in the province.
Meanwhile, melanoma can spread in months. So this Montreal woman was frantic to find a specialist. That took months, but only minutes for the doctor to flag a mole on her back and remove it. 8 weeks later, cancer was confirmed.
It knocked the breath out of me, honestly. I knew that something was wrong. It's not normal to have a pimple or a mole that's going to basically disrupt your whole day.
She is relieved her skin cancer was caught in time, but worries about others who aren't so lucky. Yvette Brend, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, it was a roller coaster of a ride, but the Canucks playoff run has come crashing down. The wounds still fresh for diehard fans, but still many are proud with how far the team made it. And as John Hernandez is finding out, there's plenty of optimism when it comes to the future of the franchise and what it means for the city.
The Edmonton Oilers are headed to Dallas.
Playoff dreams dashed. A third-period rally proved too little too late for the Vancouver Canucks.
I think the guys responded after the second half, and there was no quit.
Disappointed fans poured out of the arena Monday night.
They dug themselves a hole, a bit too deep to get themselves out of.
Just a disappointing effort. 2 efforts back-to-back was just not very good.
Come Tuesday morning, fans like Ronald Kumar still digesting the loss. He was also at the game.
We were very nervous. We were very on edge. I think we didn't even sit the last 5 or 8 minutes, and the security at the stadium kept coming up saying, guys, sit down, sit down. Other people around you can't see, and I think no one was listening.
But Kumar is also optimistic looking forward.
They're on to the second round.
The Canucks defied the expectations of many fans this year, generating buzz and excitement not seen in this city for nearly a decade.
This run sets the bar high for the franchise and also for the city, and I think everyone should be excited.
A run that included an unlikely hero.
This is an official sleeve-off jersey.
Local Latvian Ron Ozols made a custom jersey of his countryman Artur Shilovs, the third-string goalie who took over the net during the playoff run. A proud fan, no matter the end result.
Being part of the Latvian culture, it's enormous. Having a player in such an important position and doing, I think, great or well, taking the team to as far as it did, it's tremendous.
The city of Vancouver says it's still analyzing the economic impact the playoff run had, but the boost in business at many pubs and restaurants was hard to miss.
Everywhere around here was full. Everybody told the same story. You know, we're full. We start filling at 2 p.m. for a 6 p.m. game.
As for the future of the city's viewing parties, it's still up in the air. But this trial run seemed to be well received.
Yeah, it was a good, fun family time. We spent a lot of good times here.
A reminder of what a deep playoff run can mean to a city and a province, sparking belief that another crack at the cup isn't too far off. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
After the break, we'll bring you the tale of two alpacas who formed a special bond despite all odds. Stay with us. More than 100 teams of chefs are being put to the test in Vancouver this week, part of the World Championship of Chinese Cuisine. The competition, which takes place every 4 years, challenges teams to create 4 dishes within 2 hours, including appetizers, main courses, and desserts. Now, there are multiple rounds, and the winners will be crowned at an awards banquet on Friday. 2 alpacas who suffered years of neglect have formed a bond at a llama sanctuary in Tappan, BC, near Salmon Arm. After being rejected by other animals for being different, they seem to have found their happy ending. Check it out.
We have 2 very special alpacas they've brought tears to our eyes and joys to our hearts because they've both been lonely. They've both been without companions. Jemmy being 3, when she came to us at 3 days old, she had been rejected by her mother because of her strange head movement. She's swaying like this to be able to hear. She hears the vibration on things, so she's always listening. And she is now 7. She just had her 7th birthday. In fact, it's probably today. And She's filled our hearts with joy. She is a sanctuary superstar with the visitors, but she's never managed to have a companion who would accept her fully.
Eddie, the alpaca, arrived in October of last year in very poor shape. He's quite a bit older. We don't know how old, but he is completely crippled from not being able to move for so long because his coat was so heavy. He is slowly recovering, but in that recovering stage, just recently we happened to bring the 2 alpacas into the same paddock and they met up and formed a bond that is most unlikely, but it's precious.
Eddie was observing her. I saw him watching her. He couldn't take his eyes off her. And I think he was noticing that when the others were mean to her, that she didn't retaliate. She didn't react in the normal llama or alpaca way. And I think that interested him because he, up until then, couldn't think of mixing with anyone. But he got up, he went over, he said hello, and that was it. He started humming. She followed his hums because at last she had a sound to follow, and they were inseparable.
To actually find a companion for her, or for her to find a companion, should I say, is just miraculous. It's really uplifting.
And here's a live shot of Burrard Inlet toward North Vancouver. And it was a rainy, dreary day today, and it's looking quite windy out there right now. And it's got us asking, will the sun come out this week? We'll have that answer and your full forecast next.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
And now to our Darius Madavi with our weather forecast for BC. It was pretty miserable out there today. Is that rain going to be sticking around, Darius?
Not for most of us, mostly clearing out. Really, across southern BC, it was a bit of a gray day for the vast majority of people. That is going to start to clear out into tomorrow if you're on the coast, but linger a little bit longer if you're in the interior. Now, this is the rain that we were looking at a few hours ago. You can see, even as of a few hours ago, it was starting to clear out across most of the south coast, Vancouver Island, across southwestern BC, but lingering a little bit longer in places like Metro Vancouver. That should be ending now in the next few hours, but we may still see some showers lingering into tomorrow morning, so be aware it might be a little bit of a wet commute, but we should start to dry up and see the sun come out by the end of the day tomorrow here. If we take a look at our precipitation across the province, we're going to see the next system roll in, mostly affecting the more northern parts of the coast and then rolling into the interior, not until late this week. I wouldn't expect to see much precipitation here, just some showers really on Friday, and then for the interior, a bit more activity into tomorrow and maybe even a Thursday before maybe getting a little bit more rain Friday as well, but we should still see some breaks for sunshine in there. Up in the northeast, where I know we're a little bit worried about the fire situation, temperatures are rising again. We're going to hit 20 degrees and pretty much stay there with mostly sunny skies right through the weekend, which means our fire danger will likely start to come back up over the next few days. But we do still have that little bit of a reprieve. The winds are not expected to pick up at this point over the next couple days. So again, a little bit of good news there. The winds are really what caused those fires to take off when we saw them really grow quickly. And so fortunately, if we do see temperatures come up a bit, shouldn't be too much of a problem as long as those winds stay low. If we see temperatures, again, suppressed today pretty much across the province, those shoot back up tomorrow in many places, a lot faster in parts of the interior, although the south still staying relatively cool. Those temperatures should start to recover, though, as we get into the end of the week again, but maybe a bit of a cooler day Friday as well before we come back up again as we get into Saturday. So lots of ping-ponging back and forth this week. In terms of conditions, warm and sunny on the coast, a little bit of rain continuing for the interior, temperatures rebounding for the south coast. Those are probably the big stories based on the different regions. And if you look at our 5-day forecast for here in Vancouver, you're going to see that ping-ponging that we have this week. Bit of a drier day tomorrow, still showery though. Thursday, mostly cloudy, but should see some sun. Friday, we see those showers return, and then we should have a bit of a drier weekend, although Sunday is trending a little bit showery than we thought before. So some sunshine, at least.
I'll take whatever sunshine that you're going to give us. So thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
And that is your late night news for this Tuesday, May 21st. For news anytime, anywhere, download the free CBC News app. You can always find us online at cbc.ca/BC. Thanks for watching.